Josh Allen went 1-2. I was hoping that 1-2 would go Patrick Mahomes, but that guy knows ball.
Yeah, Josh Allen's your best bet. That dude. He's a fantasy stat stuff.
And we're gonna talk about Josh Allen, that
Oh,
survey
yeah.
that came out.
That's like I just don't get it.
I saw, like, I don't know, from my perspective, I saw nothing but, like, Josh Allen, like, for lack of a better way to put it, hate.
Yeah.
Like, this, that, third, like,
I think it's more so people like they don't like how he's graded compared to like the other guys.
Yep.
Like I think it's fair though because like Lamar hasn't done anything in the playoffs. Burrow got carried by his defense, but they don't like to acknowledge that though. You know.
well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out this season without Diggs, without... Oh, we're streaming. Oh, we're live right now?
I don't think anyone can hear us because I have.
The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
We are back for real this time. We, after a month absence, we're back in it. The season's right around the corner, and we're ready to rock and roll. I am joined today by my man Terrell Ford. Welcome back, All-American return specialist, current free agent right now. How are you doing? How are you feeling today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me back on. You know, it's always great to get on here and talk about ball and all that. But everything's going good. Still trying to play. You know, taking it day by day.
Good for you. And anything new? Anything coming up exciting that you got going on? Whether it be about football, whether it be about life.
Right now, nah, just chilling, chilling, playing with my dogs. You know, working out, playing a video game.
Yes,
same
sir.
Old, same old.
Yes, sir. Playing a little bit of that college football.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been long overdue. You know, been missing it about feel like forever now.
Who's your team? Who
I
you
would
playing?
probably have to say, if I was playing somebody competitive, I'd probably go Oklahoma.
Okay.
I like Oklahoma.
All right.
They got the I forgot his name, but they got the running back like the 98 speed.
Yep.
So like super cheesy.
So then I guess the real question is, who's your dynasty team?
My dynasty team.
Who are you bringing to glory?
The first one, I actually did Syracuse first.
Did you really?
I did Syracuse first.
Represent.
Yeah, and then after that, it's just I get bored. I pick a new team, just whatever.
That's good. That's good. So, as you guys can see, we're back. We're back on a weekly schedule again with the NFL season right around the corner. The NFL kickoff game next Thursday. We are full on ready. The schedule for coming into this year is going to be very similar to schedules in the past. Wednesday nights, usually around 7:30, 8 o'clock is the planned time. And we'll be going in. I mean, all of the old segments back from the day will be back as well. We have Take It to the Bank that's going to make its return. We have fantasy football. We have sports betting that we're going to be talking about. We'll have guests on all throughout the season that have different specialties across all those different areas, and we're excited to be back. More and more guests and more faces, more and more personalities. We're back and ready to go. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it.
For sure.
So, talking about NFL headlines today, the biggest one that kind of came out of the last few days, of course, was CeeDee Lamb finally getting paid. 4 years, $136 million. He is the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. I can't think of who the top is. I think it's got to be an edge rusher right now, but
Probably Justin Jefferson.
it's probably, yeah, honestly, it's probably Justin Jefferson. So what does that mean for the Cowboys? What does that mean for Dak? What does that mean for fantasy football? Let's jump right into it. So the Cowboys, I mean, to me, honestly, I don't think much really changes in terms of the Cowboys.
No.
I think looking at it, I had a feeling that he was still going to play week 1, whether there was a contract or not. But I think it's going to be CD being more, fired up, ready to go for guy getting paid for 4 years, $136 million. I mean, what is that? $40 million a year?
Crazy. and it's in Texas, so the taxes. They got no taxes.
Exactly. That's true. Now, what does that mean for Dak is the real question. From a fantasy perspective, I mean, I think Dak kind of re-implemented his stat as a guy that you can grab in the middle rounds and be able to contribute as a QB1.
Yeah, I thought it would actually get done sooner because they showed the stat where it's like it was like the biggest margin from the amount of yards the number 1 receiver had to number 2 at any team. He had like 1,000 more yards than anybody else on the team. So it's like it's obvious like he's the guy. And honestly, I don't know if he would have played because you see the similar situation with Jamar Chase right now, and he's not even practicing. Like it's like these guys want their money now. Like, and I mean they kind of got some of these teams handcuffed. Like,
I mean, you're right.
Especially CD because like for the reason we just said, like if you go out there without CD first week, it's not gonna be good.
No,
like he's that good. So I know he's happy they got it done, but it definitely means a lot for Dak though. Like having your number 1 guy out there.
Exactly.
It's always going to make you feel a lot comfortable. I'm not sure who they play week 1 either.
It's the Browns. So especially going against a team like the Browns.
Definitely don't want him that game.
Exactly. They're not going to be able to do anything with the run game. I mean, they have the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott trotting back out
there. They got
there.
Dalvin Cook back. I mean,
they did, yeah. They signed him to the practice squad.
Yep.
Was it this afternoon? I thought I saw that, right?
Yeah. Who knows? They might get some good production out of those two. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
you don't need 2000, 17
right.
Zeke or anything like that. But
you just need a couple guys to produce, especially when you have CeeDee Lamb back in the mix.
Exactly.
And even like guys like Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson's going to open up for some yards. And let's not forget about Brandon Cooks that's over there too. Yeah. He's just turning 30. I feel like he's been in the league for like 15 years, but he's only 29.
Yeah, he's like one of the most consistent receivers in the NFL. Like so many 1,000-yard seasons. He's just like reliable.
I gotta pull up his stats real quick.
It's crazy.
It's
crazy.
I think it's something to the tune of like 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, just quietly.
Saints, Patriots, Texans, just constantly. He's like the ultimate professional.
30 years old right now. Yeah, he had not consecutive, but he's had 6 total 1,000-yard receiving. Last year with the Cowboys, 657 yards, 8 touchdowns. We're talking 8 touchdowns. So this is a guy that produces. So.
Yep, he'll make plays.
Yeah. Moving on to the fantasy impact to this. I mean, I've seen guys going for CD first overall. I honestly don't think that changes again. I think if anything, you're going to see more number 1 overall CD Lamb drafts.
With that cap hit. You're going to be seeing him get the ball, maybe even more.
Exactly.
Like, you're going to get the ball.
Exactly. So, kind of going off of fantasy football, I have seen CeeDee Lamb going first overall. I've seen Justin Jefferson even still going number 1 overall. I've seen Christian McCaffrey go number 1 overall. While we're on that topic, I mean, you have 1 overall. Who are you taking out of those guys? Or out of if there's someone else that you might be taking?
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, man. That guy is different.
What's crazy to me is last year you were able to get him as late as like the end of 1, and I was one of those guys who got a lot of a lot of Tyreek Hill stock, because I had a lot of late first round picks, and I ended up in the playoffs I think I was in 10 leagues last year. Ridiculous, but but I was in the playoffs and
everybody.
Exactly. And I was in the playoffs in like 7 of them, and I had Tyreek Hill in I think 4 of those leagues, and I think people just kind of forgot who he was.
Man, and that offense is like with Waddle on the other side, and then Mostert and
Wow,
Chain.
just getting
They
paid
Chain
too.
is like, there's so much speed, but yeah, Tyreek Hill. I don't know how people like forget about him. That's my number one still. That guy is crazy.
Moving on to the next headline that I got, the quarterback competitions. We saw an interesting one in Pittsburgh between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Me personally, I always thought the starter was going to be Russell Wilson,
Me
but
too.
it's kind of nice to see that finally be cemented.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you think Justin Fields is still going to get another shot at some point this season?
You never know. You know, I feel like the Steelers with that defense isn't like they're in like a win now mode. So you never know what happens. Injuries always happen.
Yep.
Russ could have an up and down season. I seen Tomlin say today Fields is gonna have packages.
Yep.
So who knows? He may come in, make the most of them, and they may play him. But I think the plan was always because Russ didn't even play much in the preseason. He was hurt.
He
of
was,
training
yeah.
camp. So I think that was always the plan. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Justin's still young. He made that year under him may be good for him.
I mean, I think right now, hands down, I think that Pittsburgh has the best quarterback too, the best backup quarterback now in the league.
Yeah. They have really good backup quarterback.
Justin Fields is a guy that will produce, can produce,
100%.
and I feel like we could talk about this all day. He wasn't given a fair chance in Chicago.
His situation was
not
different.
constant coaching turnover, constant player turnover, the lack of morale across. I mean, having the first overall pick, how many?
Yeah, I don't think people realize how tough it is when you constantly having coaching change.
Exactly.
Different coaches and coordinators and stuff like
It's like a guy like Baker Mayfield, who's had, I think, 5 different offensive coordinaters in his 6 years of playing in the league.
Yep.
And look at what he did with what he was finally given in Tampa Bay.
For sure.
But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see Justin Fields on the field, and it's definitely a good insurance policy if you're Pittsburgh to have a guy like Justin Fields. And I feel like you see this with the Bills when they tried to grab Mitch Trubisky and let him kind of sit for a year and kind of learn that side of the field. I don't necessarily think it fully panned out for Trubisky, but hey, you never know with Justin Fields. I feel like he'll have another shot to start in the league. Look at a guy like Sam Darnold.
Especially with his athleticism and stuff like that. He's such a good tool. He's not just a pocket passer. Like you could use him in so many different ways. So I definitely think he'll get another chance.
Exactly. And then finally, Bo Nix was named the starter for the Broncos, which is exciting for the rookie. But then I don't know if you saw Jared Stidham's comments after.
Oh yeah.
He's fired up.
You had like 2 different. What's his name? What's the other one? Zach Wilson.
Yep.
He was very what you expect somebody to say. And then Jared Stidham is like,
it's like I could be a starter in this league. Now I got to ask you this from a player's perspective. Do you want your team, do you want your guys to have that kind of fire, or do you think that kind of causes some divide in the locker room?
100%. Like, I think that's what makes the NFL the NFL. Like, the regular fan doesn't see, your backup receiver thinking he's better than the starter or should be playing, but in his mind, that's what got him there. It's like,
right.
I should be playing. I should be starting. You don't want your backup quarterback like, yeah, he's better than me. I'm just not. Now, let's be realistic. Like, if you got a Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, like, we're real here. Like, you're not better. But in that situation, you have a rookie coming in, probably feel like you're better. I don't think anything's wrong with it. I think it's just the way it came off.
Gotcha.
People probably, they're always taking something, running with it. But I don't mind it.
It's the words always will get twisted some way or another, too.
Exactly.
And you always look at the full clip, and you're like, it's not as bad as
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think people realize how hard these guys work. Like,
exactly.
Like, all those months and months of just grinding, and then, like, the result isn't what you want. Like, that's, at the end of the day, they're human, and he felt some type of way about it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal, though.
That's another quarterback room where I'm looking at it, and they have a top-end backup situation.
For sure.
I mean, you got a guy, former number 2 overall pick in Zach Wilson, and you have Jarrett Stidham, who has started games, who has won games.
Yep.
And then I'm thinking about this. Now that I'm talking about it, Bailey Zappi getting signed to the Chiefs practice squad. That's huge for the Chiefs because, God forbid, something happens to Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Bailey Zappi has been shown to produce in that horrid room of New England.
Yeah.
Now, imagine what he can do with weapons like Travis Kelce and
100%.
like we were talking about pre-show, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. And it's like you never hope to see him because you know what that means for the league and for Patrick Mahomes. But again, if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm probably feeling much better about having.
I mean, then we all know, like, a backup quarterback, you're not expecting Mahomes, Josh Allen.
No more
Herbert, these
Chad
guys.
Henne backing up Patrick
Yeah,
Mahomes.
like, you know, then these guys, when they come in, you're not expecting them to be those guys. They just keep us in the game, give us a chance to win.
Exactly.
Don't do anything crazy. Make the plays, make the reads that are there. You know, solid game.
Bingo. Today or over the last few days, we've noticed a lot of roster cutdowns. This is a tough time of year for a lot of guys. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of guys that are now finding jobs and moving around. Some of those notable names include Kadarius Toney, former Atlanta quarterback Desmond Ridder, veteran wide receiver Allen Robinson, former first-round pick out from Tennessee, Caleb Farley, former first-round pick just from the 2022 draft, Lewis Sine from
from the
out of
Vikings.
Minnesota. Yep.
Crazy.
So it'll be really interesting to see where those guys end up, if they can produce, if they can get back on their feet, and if a fresh change of scenery will do
Sometimes
something.
that helps.
The one that's most interesting to me is Kadarius Toney. I feel like, you want to say that he was put in the best possible situation, but sometimes just systems and scheme fits just don't work for that player. Hopefully he takes. We don't know what his offseason training looked like, but I'm sure he spent a lot of time with working on some of the things that he messed up with drops and all of that. But I don't know. I'm looking. It's always cliche to be like, I don't know, the Bills could bring this guy in, or my team could use him. But I mean, we're talking about a former first round pick, who has talent, who has speed, who has playmaking skills. It's just the drops that really kind of got him to the situation. So I don't know. I'm interested to see where he ends up, and if he can kind of find a place to land back on his feet.
No, for sure. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see. I'm pretty sure somebody pick him up. If not, practice squad. With a guy with that speed, they're always looking for those guys. So I'm pretty sure he'll land back on his feet somewhere.
That kind of speed is not easy to find.
You can't teach that. No. You can't teach that. I don't care how many passes he drops. He'll keep getting opportunities because that speed is crazy.
Put the ball in his hand. I remember in the offseason, the Chiefs were giving him reps at running back too. I almost think like a Ty Montgomery style play where you're like a true wide receiver running back split, or Cordero Patterson, or
kind of like how the Bills plan on using Curtis Samuel.
Exactly.
Gadget guy.
I could see him kind of filling in a gadget real nicely for a team, especially in a team that needs to have more depth at wide receiver. I'm thinking of New England as one of those places that they could end up. Even Green Bay, I feel like would be a fun match. I don't know if they necessarily need it with all that youthful talent they have over there, but
Green Bay's a fun one.
That would be a real fun team to watch for sure. Moving on from the headlines, and I want to talk about the recent headline that came out from ESPN. Players were surveyed, and it came out that Josh Allen was voted the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. Us both being fans of the Bills, us both being Josh Allen fans, obviously the perspective is a little skewed from our end. But that being said, I don't know where this is coming from, me personally. So I'll ask you this. Do you think Josh Allen's overrated, or has he become even underrated going into this season?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, what they did the poll for the best quarterbacks, and he was voted by his peers like the fourth best quarterback. And then you have 11, I think it was 11 people or something that said he was overrated. So, I mean, everybody has their own opinions. I think it's nonsense. I mean,
who's getting picked for these polls?
I have no clue. It was they said one NFC West player said he throws too many turnovers. I mean, okay, I hear you, but if you honestly, that's I think the problem is a lot of people don't typically watch a lot of Bills games or see much, so they just look at the stats. And I mean, realistically, some of those games, it's if he doesn't will and these crazy first down runs, these crazy throws,
all those plays that don't show up on the box score.
Exactly.
And I'm looking at situations where a lot of the times, if I remember correctly, a good portion of those interceptions or his turnovers weren't really his fault.
No. Some of them drop passes,
bounce off the hands, or
he had 3 in one game against the Jets.
Yep.
And I think, I look at it, the Bills were 5-5 last season, and they didn't look good at all.
Nope.
It didn't look good. For them to end up where they ended up is
they ran the table.
And it all started with him.
Yep.
It all started with him.
you have a guy like Josh Allen who can at any point in time take over a game.
Yeah.
That didn't change from last season to this season. I mean, he has been on the same ascension since that 2020 season. And what I saw last year wasn't anything different from years past that made him from one of the top quarterbacks in the league to is he better than Patrick Mahomes? That conversation was just 2 years ago.
Sure.
I mean, we were going into last offseason talking about, hey, is this 1A to 1B Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen?
Yeah.
I don't know. And statistically, if you look back at it at this season compared to others, he actually had, like in a lot of the advanced stats, a better season or one of his career years in terms of total stats. So I don't know. I feel like at this point in the off season where we're so close to the start of it, it's like one of those just like we already talked about, like those headline grabbers where
for sure. Get
people just need something to talk about. I was sitting there, I was at work this morning, and I hadn't seen that list came out until this morning. I didn't see it until after I saw it on TV. I saw on ESPN the headline, the talker was, is Josh Allen the most overrated player in the NFL?
It's like,
I'm like
my thing is when they talk about the best quarterback conversation, it's like they always talk about Super Bowls and who beats who. I'm like, honestly, after Pat Mahomes, none of these guys have any Super Bowls. So it's like they're all in the same. Until somebody was beat Pat Mahomes, I mean, Burrow did, but he didn't win a Super Bowl. So it's like they're all in the same category. Nobody could be
Burrow,
Mahomes right now. Lamar,
Josh Allen,
Herbert. Lamar has
Justin Herbert.
MVPs, but I mean, everybody wants to see a Super Bowl. So
course.
it's like until one of those guys beat Mahomes,
It's always going to be Patrick Mahomes and then
everybody else.
Exactly.
Everybody else.
You put Patrick Mahomes. What I've seen in a lot of these lists, this time of year, you see all the quarterback tiers lists. You see all that. It's always Patrick Mahomes, and then
Everybody else.
beyond that, it always changes. Patrick Mahomes, there's never a shared tier. It's always
No,
Patrick
no.
Mahomes in his own tier, and then sometimes you get like Lamar and Burrow.
Yep.
Sometimes you get Burrow and Allen,
Yep.
or Burrow, Allen,
Lamar.
and you get them all.
It
So
changes.
exactly. So I don't know. I like at the end of the day, I feel like again, this is kind of just one of those media talking points to get things going. But it will be interesting, especially going into this year. You're without Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
Your entire offensive scheme has changed. You're going into Joe Brady's first full off season as offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Now he's fully taking over the offense, and you're getting a bunch of new faces on the team. Khalil Shakir is the only wide receiver in that room that has caught a pass from Josh Allen last season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's literally just it's going to be a lot of James Cook. It's going to be a lot of Dalton Kincaid, and honestly, it's going to be a lot of Khalil Shakir.
Yeah.
Especially when you have guys like Curtis Samuel, Marquez Valdes-Scantling all nursing injuries, Keon Coleman being a rookie. I think you're going to see. I mean, if there's a player to draft in fantasy outside of Josh Allen for the Bills, it's going to be Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah. I think that whole room is just going to be like each game. It might be just like a receiver by committee type thing. Like you may have a game where a guy doesn't have any catches, then he might come out maybe have like 80 yards on like 7 catches or something.
That's exactly what's going to happen. I can already see it now where Keon Coleman will have like a 3-game stretch where it's like 30 yards, 5 catches, 70 yards, or like something like that. And then he's going to pop off for 10 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, like a Stephon Diggs style game.
Something crazy. Yeah, I could definitely see something like that happening.
I don't know, and I want to get your perspective of that room. How do you feel about that room as a whole? Do you think now that they cut it down to just 5 guys?
Yeah. It's a unique room. Obviously, Keon Coleman being a question mark, I think he'll be a really good NFL receiver with that size. And people always talk about his 40 speed, but I'm like, 4.6 isn't slow. Like, it sounds everybody runs 4.4s and 4.3s.
When you like put it in the perspective, like the normal human eye is not going to be able to tell a difference between a 4.4 and a 4.6. We're talking about a quarter of a second.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're playing at that game speed with the pads on and you're running routes as opposed to running a straight line. I mean, is there even a route that is just a straight line? You have the go route, but it's like even still then you have to break off the line. You don't have an opportunity to just like.
Even like that's why the gauntlet thing was so impressive to me with him. Like he's running 20 miles per hour, catching balls on each side. Like that's impressive.
He was one of the highest. He was one of the fastest rookies for that.
He was the fastest.
He was the fastest in the combine, right?
So I think like that, those type of things translate. He catches the ball really well. Like the Bills, you could tell by the receiver room they wanted like more bigger body guys. I guess that was their plan.
Guys that can high point the
Exactly.
ball.
Yeah. So that's what it seems like they're doing. I don't think it's a bad receiver room though. Like Scantling, big game. You know, see what he's done in big games. Matt Collins has been a good pro. You know, he's had a good season with Atlanta and the Raiders.
You look at all these guys. I mean, size, like you said.
Huge. Yeah, huge.
Valdez Scantling is what, 6'4"?
Yeah, they're tall. Like I went to the practice and I'm like, I didn't realize how big they were. I'm like, yeah, they got some. They changed the whole receiver room this year. Yeah, they all got size.
I gotta look that up.
Curtis Samuel is probably like the smallest. Him and Shakir.
And he's what, 6 feet tall?
Yeah, he's not a tiny guy. I think Shakir will have a really good season though.
Yeah, Valdez Scantling is 6'4", 206. Keon Coleman, I mean, he was drafted with size. In mind, 6'3", 213. So you're getting these, tall guys that can jump up and go get the ball. So very different from what we saw last year with them going after guys like Hardy or like Trent Sherfield.
Even the past few years, Emmanuel Sanders, those guys, Cole Beasley, even like all those guys, like they were like you could tell they were specific, like they were great route runners.
Yep.
Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, all great efficient route runners. These guys that got now are like more bigger body type, like box out, jump balls, Scantling with the deep balls and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see what they do.
I wonder if they're gonna go more of that kind of like vertical run game, like a lot of go routes, a lot of verticals, a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, but then power run.
Yeah, because it'd be pretty cool to see like when they go 12, you have whatchamacall, you put Dawson Knox and Kincaid out there with Keon Coleman,
with big bodies on the outside.
Mac Hollins with James Cook in the backfield. That'll be tough. That'll be tough. I'm not gonna lie. So it's gonna be fun to watch though. I think that week 1 game against the Cardinals is gonna be. I don't think people should be overlooking the Cardinals. Man,
you know what? I've already been kind of looking at Twitter. I've been looking around.
That Cardinals team, Marvin Harrison. Oh my God.
I'm super excited to see Marvin Harrison's rookie debut. I mean, he's
with Kyler Murray. Oh my God,
one of the best prospects.
I love Kyler Murray. His game, he's so good. Man. He's so good.
That is an overhated player right there, Kyler Murray.
He can play, man. He can play.
He can ball out. The whole video game thing was completely blown out of proportion. Like, come on.
I think people forget these guys are human at the end of the day.
They're human and they're like young. Like,
yeah, like you got 20-year-olds coming to the NFL. Like, come on, man. What were you doing at 20?
Exactly.
Like,
what were you doing? Were you studying? Were you playing video games? You were doing the same exact thing.
Probably at some frat party.
Exactly. So I want to move on to my good friends over at Underdog. So I don't have the pick'em just yet. I'm going to save that for next week. But I do want to shout out Underdog. They have been such a great partner to the show. They've been sponsoring us and partnering with us for the last almost 18 months now, 19 months. I mean, we're going to be going on almost 2 years with this partnership with Underdog. So shout out to them. And again, they provide so much extra resources and all of these little bits of knowledge and just kind of like a networking chain of different producers and different creators all together. So without further ado, I want to be talking about their pick'ems. So I'm proud to be partnering with Underdog Sports, my favorite place to play fantasy games. You got to check out their pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. There's going to be a lot of promotions coming out in the next week or so with 1-yard promotions or things like that. They do a great job and they keep it fun. The app is so easy to use. So if that sounds like fun, download their app and sign up today using my code BIGYAC. That's BIGYAC to get your first deposit of up to $100 matched. Not only that, I also want to shout out our other sponsor that kind of came to us in the off season. I haven't been able to do much work with them yet, but I was proud to announce it earlier this season. But as of February, I was able to partner with SeatGeek, so another place to get your tickets. That's my favorite place to get my tickets. I love their rating system on how to get tickets. They take all of the seats that are available on the secondary market and they rank them in terms of best deal. Sign up today using Big Yak Podcast for your first purchase, and you'll get $20 off. So check them out. Shout out to both of our big sponsors. That's a huge thing for me. It helps put a couple extra dollars to go towards the show, so that's always a plus. So thank you for our sponsors. Moving on to the last main segment I have for the day, fantasy football. We are in peak fantasy football draft season. Have you done any drafts just yet?
Yeah, I did one.
You did one. I've done 2 redraft leagues, and I joined a dynasty startup also. So I've done 3 drafts. I have another one tomorrow, and then I have a whole bunch more going into next week.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite time of year. I think I'm in something like the same amount of leagues. Maybe there's 7 or 8 leagues this year. I dialed it back from 10.
10 is crazy.
I am going to get back to you, though. We talked about the Big Yak Fantasy League.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be coming back. So
We got to get that going.
I'll be renewing that and getting some interest, and we'll be drafting right before the season kicks off. I think it's better to kind of draft right before.
Season,
That's prime time.
Yeah, for sure.
You're talking to the champion of the league this year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to come back and run it back. But
we definitely got to do that. That was fun.
It's a good league, and it was just full of a bunch of guys that I had never been in leagues together with, so it was cool to kind of see
all the 10 different leagues, everybody coming together.
Exactly. It was like I was choosing representatives
from each league.
So I think this is a perfect time to talk about a lot of guys at this late in the season. Most, like we already talked about, a lot of first rounds are going to look pretty similar.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're going to get your guys no matter what.
Yeah.
You're going to have very similar production. At the end of the day, it's not really going to matter if you take CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson first overall.
Yeah.
You're going to get the same amount of production most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where the money's made, where everything kind of boils down to, is that mid section of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
After you get your first 4 or 5 guys, we're talking round 6 to 9.
Yep.
That's where the money's made.
100%.
That's where the diamonds are kind of shaken out. So I want to talk about a couple guys that I think are great grabs in their current ADP. So a guy like Christian Watson out of Green Bay.
Yep.
Jaden Reed got a lot of deserved hype. Coming off of last season, a fantastic rookie year. But at the end of the day, if you look at their production when Christian Watson is on the field, Christian Watson's getting more targets and getting more snaps and getting more plays, getting more looks. He's going right now in round 9.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed is usually going around the 5th or 6th round. You can get him a whole 4 rounds later, and he might have the same production.
Yeah. Just hope he can stay healthy. That's the only thing probably.
That's what it comes down to.
That's the scary thing with him is he's so good. He could play. Just hopefully he could stay healthy.
But then again, it's like when you're drafting that late at round 9, it's almost like
9,
you're throwing flyers at guys.
Yeah.
Say for example, if your league mates are really low on him, I've seen him go as low as 10 in the 10th round. So
that's a steal.
If you can get him in the 10th round, I'd be running to the time clock to grab that. And if your league has draft pick trading, I'm trading up in the 10th round to grab him.
I need that 10th pick.
I'm moving a 12th or a 13th to get a couple spots.
For sure.
Another guy I want to talk about is Jalen Warren, running
yeah.
back out of Pittsburgh. Now, that's going to be a split between him and Najee Harris.
For sure.
When you compare them side by side, every touch, Jalen Warren is much more efficient. He is among running backs with 100-plus touches. He is first in broken tackle percentage and third in yards before contact. You put that together, he's the best at breaking tackles, but he's also so hard to touch.
Yeah, he runs hard.
He had, I saw a stat. He was, I think, 0.9 fantasy points per touch. Compared that to Najee Harris, who had, I think, a 0.53 fantasy points per touch.
Yeah.
He's another guy that's going in the round 8 to 9. He's going around the 8 to 9 turn.
Yep.
That's a guy, if you can get him in the 9th round, hands down. I was just doing that Dynasty startup, and I was able to get him in like the 15th round.
Yeah, something crazy.
15th round in a Dynasty startup. He's going into his 3rd year as a player.
Yep.
That was a steal.
100%.
In redraft right now, he's going around 8 or so, around 8, 9. So, like I said, if you can get him at the 9th, run to the time clock.
Yeah, no, for sure.
For tight end, I have a guy, Jake Ferguson, who I think will be
Yeah.
a fantastic tight end to target in the later rounds. Obviously, there's going to be hype around Travis Kelce. There's going to be hype around Sam Laporta. Mark Andrews, as always.
Yeah.
Trey McBride is another guy.
Another one, yep. He came along at the end of last season.
That's exactly it. Now, he was tight end 1 from the time that he had started as the number 1 tight end in Arizona. He actually had the most fantasy points per game above Sam Laporta, above Travis Kelce. So he's going to get a lot of deserved hype, and I almost think he might be drafted a tad too high for my liking because of that.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid is another guy who I'd love to target, but I feel like he's going to get drafted really high just because of the lack of volatility among tight ends. So if I can get Dalton Kincaid in maybe the 6th or 7th round, I'm easily going for him, just given to the sheer amount of touches that he's going to get, the amount of vacated snaps and the amount of vacated targets that 100%. Is leaving that Bills receiving room. But Jake Ferguson is a guy that is almost forgotten about among these tight ends. I mean, he finishes every year close to a tight end 1 finish.
Reliable.
Exactly. You're in a 12-team league. As long as you have one of those top 12 tight ends, you're going to be in a good shape.
You're good.
He's going as late I've seen as like the 11th or the 12th round. So really towards the end of the draft, where you're kind of just like picking up flyers. I mean, if you got a bona fide guy like Jake Ferguson who's in a situation where he'll produce, I mean, he's the third high. I mean, he's going to be probably the third target in a very pass-friendly receiving room. CeeDee Lamb is obviously going to get his. Brandon Cooks is going to get his, but Jake Ferguson gets a lot of red zone looks. He gets a lot of safety valve looks too. So
dump it off to him.
I'm definitely targeting Jake Ferguson. All these guys I have multiple stocks in the drafts that I have, or in the dynasty leagues I've been targeting, trading for those guys in dynasty too. So those are my guys that I'm really looking at right now. But then either other guys too, like I'm thinking of Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert, I feel like every year is getting forgotten about.
100%.
It's like almost like the Charles Kelce effect. Not to that extent, but it's like, oh, he's gonna definitely fall off this year. He's gonna fall off this year. And now I've seen him go undrafted.
Yeah.
I'm like, are we gonna fall for the same mistake year after year?
Yeah. Especially with running backs.
Exactly.
There's always injuries, and that's looking through the draft. I'm trying to find like that rookie running back that's gonna make a splash.
There's always that one.
There's gonna be one of them that's gonna come out of nowhere. Like, where did this dude come from? Like,
I know. I was eyeing Kamani Vital on the Chargers.
Okay.
But now I'm looking at that room. That room has Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, basically everyone that was on the Ravens before.
Literally,
it's just the Ravens running back room now.
Yep.
So, but that being said, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, they both have an injury history.
Yeah.
Kamani Vital might be that guy that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But don't forget they also have Blake Corum too. And Harbaugh, being a Michigan former coach, coached Blake Corum already just last year, so he's probably going to get his looks too. But
For sure.
Keep an eye out for Kamani Vital. Keep out for, I'm trying to think, Jonathan Brooks is starting the season on PUP.
PUP list,
So that being said, Chuba Hubbard is another guy that's forgotten about. I got him in the 13th round in one of my drafts.
Yeah.
I'm grabbing him all day. I mean, that's running back number 1, and he looked good against the Bills.
Yeah, he did.
Granted, it was the Bills' backups, but he still looked good. He was running sharp and running tight. So
Ray Davis looks good too.
Ray Davis is another guy, and I mean, you already see him on the depth chart locked in as running back too.
Yeah.
Something happens to James Cook, Ray Davis is filling right in for him.
100%.
So I don't know. You got any other guys that you're keeping an eye out for?
I've been drafting him for like the past 2 years. I hope something happens, but I think Kyle Pitts this year.
This is the year. If
Kirk
there is
Cousins.
going to be a year, it's got, I mean, look at what Kirk Cousins did to T.J. Hawkinson's stock.
Yeah, I got lucky last year. I drafted him. I'm like, he'll be solid. And I'm like, with Kirk Cousins, I'm like, man, he's the number one until he got hurt.
Exactly. And I think, going into a new offensive system too is going to help. So I don't know. I like that pick.
Kyle
Pitts.
Matt Ryan, he's 1,000-yard guy. So I think he'll get back to that form because he could play.
Exactly.
Another one too is Javonte Williams, the running back from the Broncos.
That's another guy who has been overlooked since his injury. I mean, last year he was getting underdrafted, and he still produced as a RB2.
Yep.
And when you're getting him as late as you are, we're talking again 7th, 8th round.
Yep.
you'll be happy to get an RB2
100%.
at that point in time.
Coming off that was last year, coming off the ACL. Or
The
whatever.
ACL, MCL.
Yep. So they said this year he's looking. I think he'll have a solid season.
Yep.
Especially second year under Sean Payton.
I'm also looking at Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has been
I drafted
forgotten
him and
about.
put him on the IR.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna forget about Nick Chubb. I think he'll be good when he comes back.
This will be obviously the cheapest you'll ever get.
100%.
Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb, 100%. Absolutely. You will never get him this cheap.
Draft him. I got him. I think in like the 7th or the 6th or 7th
I got him
round.
something crazy late.
Like at that point in time, in the dynasty league, the startup that I got him in like the 20th round because people aren't. Oh, he's an old running back.
Yeah.
He's still an RB1.
Yeah.
He's RB1.
One that's always intriguing to me too is like George Pickens.
George Pickens is another guy. I don't know. There's no Deontay Johnson in that wide receiver room now.
He's such a big play guy. Like,
with Russell Wilson, let's remember that's Russell Wilson.
Yep.
And I just want to talk about this real quick. Going back to Russell Wilson, he didn't play bad last year. He played good. He had a solid season.
If I would have went to the playoffs, they didn't bench him.
That's what I'm saying. He had a solid season, and he was getting so much flack for Denver's woes that he did not deserve.
No, he didn't.
I would not sleep on the Steelers this year with Russell Wilson.
Me either.
And that's why, like we had already talked about, that's why I wasn't like too surprised to see Russell Wilson being the starter. I mean, he can still ball.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 9-time Pro Bowler here.
He can play. He can
Talking about a guy that at one point in time, and still could be, in the Hall of Fame conversation.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about who Russell Wilson is. The slander of Russell Wilson has got to stop.
Yeah, no, definitely. He could still play.
So now you get a guy like George Pickens who is hungry. You get who did they just draft this year?
The guy from Michigan. He's been hurt. What's his name? Roman Wilson.
Roman Wilson.
Yep.
Roman Wilson. You have him as well. I mean, let me pull up that depth chart real quick. I love that George Pickens pick. I don't know off the top of my head where exactly he's getting drafted.
Yeah, me either. I drafted him, but I don't remember what round it was.
I mean, we're talking Calvin Austin in the slot, Van Jefferson, and George Pickens.
Yep.
This is the George Pickens show.
Yep.
Pat Freiermuth is still there, but I don't know. I've never been like a big Pat Freiermuth
me either.
believer.
He can play, but like I don't know. Fantasy wise, I'm not sure.
Darnell Washington, who they have been using more as a blocker.
Yeah.
Although he is a massive human
That's
being.
a big dude. That dude is huge.
6'7", 264. That's a big guy.
Yeah.
But he can play. He can run and he can catch too.
Yeah.
They just haven't really utilized him that much for that. But yeah, Roman Wilson. They're only running with 5 wide receivers on their depth chart. Scotty Miller's there. I didn't even realize Scotty Miller was.
He was on their training camp. I didn't know if he made it or not.
I thought, to be completely honest, I thought he was still in Tampa Bay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is going to be the George Pickens show in Pittsburgh.
For sure, yeah.
Take a look at DK Metcalf from last year. I mean, I honestly would expect similar output from years past of DK Metcalf to George Pickens. That's a great one. And yeah, he's definitely a guy that's totally been overlooked.
100%.
In terms of some quarterbacks, I feel like a lot of guys, it's so tough every year to figure out where exactly you should grab quarterbacks.
Yeah, it is.
Jaden Daniels. Let's not sleep on Jaden Daniels because, I mean, he was already named the starter.
Yep.
They have great weapons finally now in Washington. So if you can get him late, I've seen him go undrafted. It's like, it's so easy just to pick him up and stash him. If you have an IR guy, just pick him up, stash him, see what he can do. I mean, think back to like when Justin Fields popped off those 6 games in a row and how he became, especially in Dynasty, where he became like such a huge cost. Or even
Anthony Richardson was good too until he got hurt.
And that's another guy too, actually. Anthony Richardson, now that you say it, he's another guy that you can get late. You can get him really late. And he looked good. He looked like a dual threat from fantasy, like how Josh Allen was early in his career. Where, his passing wasn't fully
It was like up and down
there, but you had that rushing yards and those rushing touchdowns blanket to hold you over.
And he has some weapons. Josh Allen didn't have a Jonathan Taylor.
No.
With Michael Pittman and Adonai Mitchell should
Yep.
be good too.
That's we have this is like the show before the big one, like the
For the main thing.
we're in the opening round right now. We're on the appetizer. This
Yeah.
was your appetizer for the NFL season.
The main event is next week.
But as always, Terrell, thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for stopping by and chatting football with me. It's always great to have you on, get your perspective. Wish you all the best in what you're working on right now and everything that you're doing. But again, that's all I got. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Mitch Moranto for putting on such a great show with Emerge and everything. Shout out to Jack too, by the way. Do we have a camera over on Jack? Is the Skycam up and running?
The sky cam's up, but it's like that way.
So shout out to Jack. Jack filled in. Joey could not be here today. I do want to give a quick shout out to Joey because he is going back to school. He's working to become a teacher. So I just want to say shout out to him. Keep doing his thing. He had some things going on, so he couldn't be in today, but he will be back for the season. But shout out to Jack, last minute filling in. Thank you for coming on by and getting to see the Big Yak in person. Check out his show. Do you have your mic on? Did you want to talk about your show at all while we're here?
I think this is one. Okay. Yeah. Our show is the 716th Legion Reacts. We're got a good amount of stuff coming out. That's messing with my head because I'm hearing myself double. But yeah, we have a good amount of stuff coming out. We have a few gaming playthroughs coming out. So if you're into that, come check us out.
He's way too humble. Let's just talk about the fact that he's had 3 TikToks go over 1 million views, thousands of followers, thousands of subscribers. He is the show to watch at Emerge right now. His show and all the guys over there at 716th. They're doing their thing. If you like Star Wars, if you like video games, if you like all that, go on over there, check it out. Also wanted to shout out because I haven't been on the show since then. While we're talking about shout outs, is Tank Talk. Tank Talk is going well. I was just talking to Tank not too long ago, and he's also now co-hosting David Adams' show on Fridays. Yeah, weekly. He's on the show, and he's their, I think, their lead breaker now for opening cards and all that. And he does that live every week. So shout out to everything that they got going on today over there. We'll collab soon, and shout out to everyone else that's doing their thing at Emerge. It's so awesome to see it grow. If you are ever thinking about a podcast, if you're thinking about starting a show, or even just a creative looking for a space to work, head on over to Emerge. There's a spot for you. If you kind of have any questions about that, or if you need anything at all, reach out to me, reach out to Rich Moranto. He does an awesome job as always. So that being said, thank you to Rich. Thank you to every other show that is kind of boosting this whole studio and keeping these lights on. Thank you to Emerge as always, and thank you BICBP Radio Network for giving us a place to host the show. That is all I have for you today. We'll see you next week for the week 0 of the Big Yak podcast. Thanks for tuning in.